Good evening, everybody. We are now live and we're going to start the meeting. I think before we start tonight, just to, be sure who's here, can we make an introduction? I'm Councillor Edith Macaulay and I'm the chair of the Licensing Committee. Can
you hear me? Okay, sorry about that. Thank you, Chair. I'm Caroline Sharkey. I'm the licensing manager and I will be presenting the report to you tonight. Thank you.
I'm Sarah Quinn, the Commercial Services Manager, overseeing licensing, food and safety and trading standards.
I'm Councillor Mike Brunt, member of the committee.
Councillor Helena Dollimore, St Helier Ward on the Licensing Committee.
Councillor Martin Welton, Pollard Hill Ward, the Licensing Committee.
Caroline Charles, Ravensbury Ward, Licensing Committee.
Councillor James Williscroft, Lower Moreton Ward, Licensing Committee.
Michael Patterson, Councillor Cannon Hill Ward, Licensing Committee.
Robert Page, Councillor West Barnes on the Licensing Committee.
Samantha MacArthur, Councillor for Wimbledon Park on the Licensing Committee.
Councillor Jill Hall, Wimbledon Park, Licensing Committee.
Thank you, everyone. Oh, yes, he's online. Yes, we've seen him. Councillor Mercy. Thank you.
Hello.
Any apologies for absence? Yes.
Apologies for.
Okay. I think Councillor June Henry is on holidays. Can we put her down as well? Anyone else? No. Thank you. Now we move on to agenda item number 2. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? No, no, thank you. Now we move on to agenda item number 3, minutes of the previous meeting. And I'm going to do it with the matters arising. I think we turn on to page 1 of the minutes. Yes, Councillor Helena Dollimore.
Thank you. I just wondered.
Sorry, I think there's something wrong with my thing. Then it's not. Yeah, it's not. I don't know what's going on.
Thanks.
Yeah, I know.
I think the minutes need to be amended to reflect the conversation that we had on the nighttime strategy, particularly relating to the issues around the Met Police and confidence in the Met Police after the serious investigations that we've seen and reports such as the Louise Casey report. We had a discussion about how certain communities, such as minority communities and women, may feel less confidence right now, and that needs to be corrected. And that was a discussion that we had, but I don't see that minuted. So I just wondered if that could be included in the notes of the discussion that was had under item 4.
Yes, can I? Right, we need to, because it's very important, and there was a big discussion we had here, so I think it should be included. Are there any matters arising, any further matters arising from the minutes? Further matters arising, I'm going to sign the minutes with the inclusion of the discussion we had. Hopefully that will be added to it. Thank you. Move on to agenda item number 4, which is the 3-year review of the Council Cumulative Impact Assessment as required under the Licensing Act 2003. And I'll ask Caroline Sharkey to speak on the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm mindful that you've read the report, so I'll just walk you through the summary of the report and answer any questions at the end. So this report, Chair, sets out the review of the existing cumulative impact policies that we've got in Merton. This is a requirement under Section 5A of the Licensing Act, which was introduced as into the statutory footing by Section 141 of the Policing and Crime Act, which was Crime Act in 2017. As an authority, we are required to review our cumulative impact policies every 3 years. The last review was carried out in 2020. Now we need to review them for them to come into force next year. I've set out, Chair, under paragraph 2.10 on pages 5 and 6 of the agenda, what we are required to consider when we are reviewing our policies. This is set out in the statutory guidance, which is issued under the Licensing Act 2003. As an authority, when we draft the CIA policy, we're required to consult with the Met Police, London Fire Brigade, Director of Public Health, and all bodies representing local premises licenses, personal licenses, and other local communities, board members who are interested in the Licensing Act regime. Currently, Chair, we've got 2 cumulative impact policies in Merton. We've got Wimbledon High Street, and we've also got Mitcham Town Centre. Mitcham Town Centre only focuses on off licenses, premises license applications. Wimbledon Town Centre is for both. I've produced a map showing the current cumulative impact policies that we've got, Chair, as an appendix A to the report. These are printed on pages 11 to 15 of the agenda. Chair, we've got to review any evidence when we draft the policy and seek responsible authorities to consider them. And the matters that we have to take into account are crime and disorder, and social behavior, health impacts, including alcohol-related emergency attendance and hospital admissions. We are proposing the data sets, Chair, which are produced under paragraph 2.14 on page 7 of the agenda. Those are the data sets that we need to consider, we've proposed to consider. We are also proposing this time round, taking into consideration the impact on COVID on the high street and trying to help regenerate the nighttime economy. We have considered some exceptions to the policy if applicants come with a business model which will encourage the promotion of licensing objectives. The exceptions that we have listed as an exception, Chair, are detailed under paragraph 3 of the report on pages 7 to 8. Once the cumulative impact assessment, once we've collected all the data and reviewed it, we are proposing, Chair, to bring that draft policy to you in September with a view for approval to send it out for consultation. This is the report, Chair. I'm happy to answer any questions or any points of clarification at this stage. Thank you.
Very much for your very extensive report. And I think it is quite clear, just to make it easier for the committee, that the crime and disorder implication, obviously this service has a statutory duty to contribute to the reduction of crime and also disorder within the London Borough of Merton under Section 17 of the Crime and Disorder Act 1988. So having heard from Caroline, so we will now take questions, on the, if anyone wants to make, I'll start off with Councillor Martin Welton. It's a very extensive report. I'm not going to take 3 in one go, just to give Caroline time to give an answer to the queries which have been raised, because it is a very important document. So Councillor Martin Welton, thank you.
Thank you. I was chair at the time when this was introduced way back in January 2005. Because I was chair of licensing from 2004 to 6, which probably shows you the length of time I've been on this authority. Obviously, in terms of the cumulative impact zone, when it was originally established back in 2005, there was obviously major antisocial behaviour problems within Wimbledon town centre, in terms of obviously complaints from residents, especially obviously in terms of late night premises, but also as well concerns in terms of the level of crime and disorder. Clearly, obviously, to have a CIZ in place, you do need to have an element of police evidence to it. They backed up our case then for Wimbledon Town, and Wimbledon Village was in a CIZ then, obviously is now been removed. Where do the police stand on this issue? And what I'd also be interested to know is obviously in terms of complaints we receive in terms of public nuisance noise from premises. Is there any kind of trends in terms of that as well? And it would be interesting to know as well in terms of the number of licensed premises which are within the CIZ. I would imagine that it's probably significantly lower than when it was first established 18 years ago. We obviously know that the nature of the whole licensing business has evolved over that time. And it is clear, obviously, as in the council, we do need to be on a firm evidential base if it is to be continued, but also as well considering whether it is preventing a nightlife economy acting as a barrier, obviously taking the licensing objectives into account. So obviously I'd be interested to know, obviously in terms of those issues and your observations in terms of the town centre as well. And there's just obviously one minor point I saw in terms of, it mentioned obviously Abbey and Trinity. It's not the Wimbledon Town and Dundonald Ward and Abbey Ward. There's been ward boundaries changes. So just a small thing I noticed in the report, but I'd be interested obviously in your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before you give your answer to that, I now see that Councillor Kohler has joined us online. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. No, thank you for that. Exactly that. When the CIA policies were introduced way back in 2005, there was no statutory basis in which to actually collect that evidence. That's why it was introduced by the Policing and Crime Act to make sure that these policies were not just there indefinitely. There's now a legal threshold to ensure that as an authority, you have a reason to maintain these cumulative impact policies. So one of the things we have to do, I've just listed it under the report under paragraph 214, we have to collect data. What we're going to go away now is to collect data. Absolutely right. The police data is one of the key ones that we look at in terms of antisocial behavior, crime and disorder, to see whether the information we get is still, the evidence we get is still that, you know, it is high in the areas that we've got Wimbledon Town Centre and Mitcham. And that information I will be presenting to you, Councillor, so you can have a look. There's all other data that we have to collect, you know, violence against person. We have to get ambulance data is one of the things that was introduced as a statutory footing. So the information I've listed, the list on there, that is the information we are going to collect: noise and nuisance reports, how many licensed premises. And what I would say from the knowledge of the CIA, we don't really have a situation where we refuse all the licenses that are coming in. So I will be able to inform you that when I come back to produce this data for you, so you can have a look how many premises licenses have been issued in Wimbledon Town Centre and Mitcham, because I think that information will be really, I think it will be useful for you, councillors, to know what kind of applications we do get, the statutory requirement is that if we get an application, for example, in Wimbledon Town Centre, that's not received any relevant representation, we are legally required to grant them. So, yeah, and even if we get relevant representation, the matters are referred to the licensing subcommittee, and usually the applicants, do put good cases forward. So since I've been in Merton, I've not seen a lot that's been refused, but some of them do get refused by way of if they've been a reviewed premises license. But I think it's important that that information, we will put it in the report in September, so that members can know how many licenses were in Wimbledon and Mitcham in 2020 and how many we've got licensed now. Don't know whether that's helpful to answer your question. Yeah.
Councillor Robert Page.
Thank you. I had quite a specific question, which is, I wondered how you collected the underage drinking statistics that are sort of referenced in 2.10 and also a bit further down in what section is it? 2.14. Then also a comment. I thought your proposed exceptions in 3.2 and 3.4, they sound pretty sensible to me. So that was just my initial view on those. But yeah, I'd be interested in how you gather that underage sale data.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, so the benefit we have, unlike some authorities, trading standards sits within our section. So work really closely with our colleagues in trading standards. So the way they do, I'm aware through joint working relationship with them, we do go out to off licenses, in Wimbledon, all in Merton, basically. Some of it is proactive and some of it intelligence led, and they do carry out underage test purchases. They mainly focus on off licenses. If it's an underage issue in a licensed premises, we do look for, because of public safety of children going these premises, we do look to work with the police in those circumstances. So the data that will be shared, when we come back in September, we'll have that information. And we don't only do underage test purchases, we also do quite a lot of premises. I've got what they call Challenge 25 policy. So we do get people going in and actually challenging off licenses to make sure that they're complying with any conditions that they've got on a license, to make sure they challenge anybody who looks 25 or and under the age of 25. And that also is incorporated within the test purchases that we do. So that information, again, I will be able to share that information of what the data looks for the last 3 years since we reviewed the policy, for you to have a look at that. Yeah, so pleased to note that you support the exceptions. We just thought it was important, given the post-COVID and the economic climate within the high street. I think it's just the right thing. We thought it was the right thing to do. And we've also looked at close bordering and other London boroughs. I think they're going the same way to try and help the public entertainment industry. Thank you.
Hello, Helena Dolimu.
Thank you, Caroline, to you and the team for all the work that's gone into this paper and proposal. My question was about page 7, section 2.14. Councillor Page has already touched on the data sources and how you obtain the various parts of the information. I think all of the data sets mentioned on there are very relevant and pertinent. I just wondered whether it's worth considering consulting with some of the civil society and voluntary organisations or officers within the council who work closely with them on any particular hotspots they may have identified or any particular trouble spots they know of from their work with members of the community. Appreciate it may not be something you can delineate as a clear data source, but that might just be worth part of the consultation process.
Absolutely. I'll look into that to see if there's anybody who's got any data sources they could share, which we will incorporate in our draft. The other ones that are probably not listed is our CCTV data. what they capture in terms of alcohol sales, street drinking, and that kind of thing. But we will share anything. If I find out if anybody's kept any data, we'll definitely take that into account when we come back in September to review the data sets.
Jill Hall. Councillor Jill Hall, did you want to ask a question? I saw your hand up. Did you want to ask a question? I saw your hand up. That's why I've got it written down.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about women and girls' safety. The task force that was set up a year ago. Sorry, you mentioned this as well. Yeah. What input has there been into this report from that task group? And the other thing I wanted to mention was I know in the minutes it mentioned about the street pastors, and I wanted to say I've been out with them now 4 times, and they do a great job. And I think it's great that we're setting up the safe zone now on a Friday, and but I think there's more that could be done, especially with the premises that offer late night refreshment, that they should perhaps be persuaded to sign up to Pub Watch, which does a great job in connecting nighttime economies and sharing information about people who may be not behaving as well as they might, and that should perhaps be banned from those premises. And it also helps share information about people who might be hanging around outside premises, possibly to predate on vulnerable women at that time. Thank you.
Do you want to answer that?
Your statement.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Thank you for those comments. Women's safety data, I've been working with the police, so I will hopefully be able to share that information when we come back in September. Absolutely agree. And one of the data sets that we're going to look at is the street pastors, to see if they've got any data, because we know there are street pastors in Wimbledon and Mitcham. So we'll try and contact them to collect that information for you. Absolutely agree with late night refreshment. There can be some, flashpoints in these areas. What I would say is, if there is, most of the premises do have premises license conditions. They don't have standardized conditions, but if they all have different conditions, they have to adhere to. So if you know any particular ones, definitely do email us, and we do work well with our partners, particularly the police, to try and resolve matters on licensed premises. Necessary, we do encourage them to join any local Pub Watch. I know we've got a very active Pub Watch in Wimbledon, and we encourage license holders to attend to that. We work closely with the bid, but in terms of any problems for any late night refreshments licenses, the flashpoint, please do email me and let me know, and we do some targeted intervention. I don't know if that helps to answer your question.
Councillor Samantha MacArthur.
Hi, just a quick one. It's about the dispersal policy, and whilst I think these are really good ideas that you've got here, the exceptions. The dispersal policy is just ensuring that they're dispersed from outside the area, it appears to me, the sort of outside the pub. But often that just means they're pushed out into residential streets, which then they have a lot of trouble on the streets with drunk people or people, inebriated people coming down the streets and congregating outside houses and things. I don't know how you deal with that if you have a strong dispersal policy, which then pushes them onto residential areas.
Thank you. Dispersal policies, yeah, they can be tricky, but where there's a linked evidence that a licensed premises is causing nuisance to nearby residents, then they could look for that dispersal policy can go further, like they could have a door supervisor or marshal at the top of the street to make sure they engage with the patrons to leave the premises quietly. There's so many things that you can do with a dispersal policy. You can get it detailed as much as possible, so that if it's an impact in a particular area, for example, we have a premises in Richmond where we've done exactly that, to try and place door supervisors away from the premises, but in a particular area where residents feel that they are impacted by the noise. So yeah, whilst it's about dispersing people from the premises, but it can go even wider. The things that you can do, like encourage the operator to have taxis, a way of a quick dispersal for patrons to leave that area and get into the taxis, for example, or divert the dispersal to an area away from a residential area. So yeah, so a dispersal policy as it reads, while it's reads like the way it's detailed, it does go into detail in terms of having a prescriptive dispersal policy that is to the benefit of everyone, really, particularly if a premises is located in a residential area. Does that help?
Added to that as well, where the court have implemented a dispersal order on someone, if they are caught around, pubs and all that, they're not allowed to, because on the pronouncement that is made in the magistrate's court, it's very difficult. If you've had a dispersal order from the court, you will not be seen outside, or you should not be seen outside a pub, because it will state the areas where you shouldn't be. So, I mean, we do make that order in court, and a lot of those orders are kept, and they have where they have to, they should refrain from going. And it does help in terms of town centers and big pubs and all that. So I think that's a good thing. That's a good question which you've asked, and it's important that, we monitor that as well, because sometimes, the authority will not be aware of if somebody had a dispersal order in court. Thanks. Wanting to ask a question? No. Anyone online? Paul, Councillor Marston? I can't see any of you. I don't know what's happened to my laptop. No one? Right. There are 3 recommendations, which we have in front of us, A, B, and C. I just want to take soundings from everyone who's here tonight, whether you feel what you've had and the report which has been provided, and also what Caroline has said, that information will be shared in the September meeting, whether you are all in agreement with the 3 recommendations as stated in the report. Are you all in agreement with the recommendations? Agreed? Right, thank you. So we will obviously have further information for the September meeting, in addition to some of the questions which have been asked today for further clarification. Well, it appears that we have nothing else on the agenda, so far, and obviously the meeting will have to come to an end. And thank you all for coming, and have a safe